Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. I am absolutely thrilled that you are here, and I smirk and I chuckle when I say that because it has come to my attention that I am often imitated, or dare I say mocked, when I say I am thrilled that you are here, but I absolutely mean that. If you've never checked out our program before, we are essentially a commentary and an interview podcast, and we cover all kinds of topics. We have a lot of creators on the program. We have people who want to share their stories. A lot of people have just absolutely amazing journeys that they share with us, and that is always so meaningful to me because it impacts so many people, and that includes me. Sometimes I'm kind of taken up when I'm interviewing these people, and I wish I could just sit back and listen and not have to worry about running the show. So those types of stories always amaze me. Commentaries can vary, and today we're going to kind of talk about pop culture, a little bit of politics, and what I'm going to talk about today is the recent Academy Awards for 2021. I'm not going to get into who won and who didn't and all that. But the ratings for the 2021 Academy Awards were very, very low. And there's been a lot of speculation as to why that is. And a lot of people have suggested that the injection of politics into award shows has impacted them, and I would agree with that, and we're going to talk about that, but that is not the only factor. There's a lot going on here that is challenging the big studio system in a way that they have never been before. There's a perfect storm of things happening, and we're going to talk about that perfect storm. And I want to say that as a general rule, I am a fan of filmmaking. I've kicked around the idea of doing some film myself. I have a lot of associates who are very much into independent films. A lot of them have done major projects, and I find the art of storytelling very compelling. And it saddens me because I'm not going to talk about this too much today, but it sounds like a cliche when the older generation says, well, they just don't make them like they used to. And I would have to say, as generations go on, this is something that the older generation always says about the previous generation, but it's starting to be true. It's starting to be true now with music and filmmaking and a lot of other things. And a lot of that is because of the audience. The audience has changed. I sometimes wonder if The Godfather would be The Godfather today, if it came out. Would it have the appreciation? Would it have the accolades that it did throughout the 70s and 80s and today? Certainly one of the finest films and series of films ever made. It's right up there with Citizen Kane and a lot of other films in that same breath. And we just haven't had landmark films like that, like The Deer Hunter, or let's see, even Saving Private Ryan in the 1990s. These types of films, these landmark films, just really haven't happened lately. They're very much driven by comic book characters, which is fine. The special effects, on one hand, you could say are as good or better than they have ever been in films, but are they? A lot of times CGI and all of these other things are overused. They're out of proportion. They come across like very expensive video games. And I'm not sure where the art of storytelling has landed. I have some suggestions, and we're going to talk about that today because that is very important. That's something that is affecting the Academy Awards and how they're regarded. Okay. Let's talk just a little bit to document what has happened with the 2021 Academy Awards in regard to ratings. In 2021, They estimated the audience for the Academy Award program at 9.85 million people, which is very small for a show like this. An enormous drop from the previous year, something like 59%. Now, this follows suit with a lot of other award shows. So it's hard to pick just one reason why this is happening, but over the number, let's say the past few years, whether you're talking the Emmys, the Golden Globes, and all these things, Emmy award shows, not Emmy award shows, but shows in general, award shows in general, don't have the traction that they once did. Now, there's some that hit big. I'm not saying that there isn't, but there's a downward trend in award shows in general. Getting back to the Academy Awards, and this is key. This is something I'm going to touch on in this podcast here. This has more meaning than what it does on the surface. Okay, but in the crucial 18 to 49 age group of adults, and I'm going to say this is particularly true on the younger side of that, in that 18 and up. The Academy Awards this year got a 1.9 rating. That is a 64% drop from 2020. That's a lot. And that's where the young people and the attitudes about storytelling and about what Hollywood once meant in the 1970s is starting to change. What is a star, what we consider to be a movie star or a media star or whatever, is starting to change. We're going to talk about that today. I've heard people say that for a lot of reasons, people are losing interest in programs like the Academy Awards. And that's true, but it's more serious than that. People are making a choice not to tune in. That's a little different than just not having interest anymore. They are avoiding these programs. So that kind of leads us into this conversation about politics, okay? And politics are certainly a part of this. There's absolutely no question. It's not the only reason, though, and we're going to get into that. But politics is not the only reason that this is happening, but you cannot ignore the political social justice warriors and what they've done to these programs. You can't ignore it when you analyze this. It's not new. And this is one of the reasons why I say it's not the only factor. Probably one of the ones in Academy Award history that really stand out was Marlon Brando, when he was nominated for his role in The Godfather. He refused the award, and he sent up Sacheen Littlefeather, and I hope I'm saying that name correctly, and she came up there to talk about the treatment of what was then referred to as American Indians by the film industry. This dehumanizing, kind of portrayal as the people who are always going whoop, 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 and all the warriors things. And it's a fair, I would say, statement for how what was then termed as Indians in movies, cowboys in Indian movies. It was a fair criticism, and it was a controversial thing for Marlon Brando to do at the time. And I don't know how it impacted his career. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. But I've heard Marlon Brando films of him talking afterwards about some of his reasoning for doing it, and it made sense. Okay. But you have to keep in mind that these incidents were few and far between. So they were more impactful. They grabbed the audience attention. And now I would make the argument that the infusion of politics into award shows is part of the norm now. Every other time somebody comes up there, they have some sort of a statement. And I want to be very clear. I want to be as crystal clear as I can on this, because when I get into discussions with people about this, especially people who lean left, and for those of you who are new to the show, I don't have a political ideology. Okay, I try to be as objective as possible. And I don't have one of these things where I'm a conservative and there's this and there's this filter that I put on things because I'm a conservative and this is how things should be. Blah, blah. That's not me. Okay. Some of the people that come up to the podium at these shows have very legitimate causes. There are things in the society that we need to pay attention to. No argument there. And a lot of times when I talk to people who defend these types of actions, they say, well, they have a platform and they want to use that platform to affect change. Okay, that's fine. I get your point. But there comes a point when there are so many people using every opportunity to create a political platform that these messages become part of the thing that you have to sit through before you find out who won the best picture. Okay? And there's two people in the history of show business that I want to talk about here. Okay, one of them is Michael Jackson. There was a documentary film made in the wake of his death about him preparing for what was going to be his last concert, or his last major concert. And he mentioned during that documentary, when he was talking to the crew and the other dancers and the musicians and so on and so forth, that we are selling escapism. People come here to escape their reality. And if you're too young to remember what Michael Jackson was like at the height of his career, he really did sweep you away. I mean, when he appeared on stage, everybody was like, you're talking about somebody, there was hardly a person in the world who didn't know the name Michael Jackson. And you were caught up in something that was larger than life. It was being presented that way. Okay, now obviously Michael Jackson was just a human being, but his magic was in his performance and how he made you feel. And he was very in tune to the fact that you are selling people escapism. The other person I am going to talk about is Johnny Carson. And here again, if you're too young to remember what Johnny Carson was like on The Tonight Show, you could say, well, the market was different back then and so on and so forth. And that's true. The late night landscape wasn't littered with 24-hour news channels and all these other things, but he was different. There was something about Johnny that, unless you were old enough to remember what he was doing at the time live, and I didn't watch him every night, but he made you feel good. And one of the things he always said about show business was, we're in the business of being liked. Likeability, he said, was a key factor in this business. And Johnny would get political at times, but it wasn't dependent on whether or not the given president was Republican or Democrat. He poked equal fun at them, and I say poked fun. He was never mean-spirited. Some of the people today say the most awful things about political leaders. And I'm saying this, excuse me, about the ones I like and the ones I dislike. It's the disrespect that is thrown at political leaders that we don't like is very concerning to me. You know, we wonder why better people aren't getting involved in politics. Who wants to get involved in that? Who wants to have their home terrorized, or where they go out to eat? And a lot of this is fueled by the vitriol that is thrown at political figures by media personalities. You know, I've been critical of most of the presidents during this program, in the history of this program. but I've never spoken about them in the most derogatory terms, and I don't care how they act. You know, one of the arguments that I really hate is a whataboutism. Well, what about what he said? That's irrelevant to me. You know, if I kill someone and you say, Bill, that's a terrible thing. You murdered somebody. What's wrong with you? My answer can't be, well, what about Ted Bundy? He killed almost 100 people. Wrong is wrong. And I feel a certain amount of respect and responsibility in the way I present myself to the public. And I don't allow myself to behave that way. And I'm not a saint. I mean, I'm sure I've said off-color things, and you know, once in a while in the world of comedy, sometimes pushing the envelope is a good thing, and I'm all for that. But the hate that is behind a lot of it now is shocking. And here again, if you are a sports figure, the days of Joe DiMaggio, the days of Hank Aaron, the days of Walter Payton, we remember these people not so much because they were good at sports. We remember them because they were great people. They were just wonderful, incredible people. And I feel that a lot of our entertainment figures and sports figures have forgotten that they are, anytime you take a political position, you are jeopardizing the business that you are in. Okay? It used to be you could go and take your son or your daughter or who have you to a football game or a basketball game, buy some popcorn, buy a hot dog, and just have fun. Or go there with your friends and just have fun. And you could forget about what was happening at work. You could forget about the news and all the talk of World War III and all these other things. You need a break. And I would say it's a necessity in life. If you really want to approach the problems in society, you need to take a break from them. You have to take care of yourself. Just like being a caregiver. If you've ever been a caregiver, and I have been, you have to take care of yourself. The example that we often use is when you're on a plane and something goes wrong and the oxygen mask comes down. Before you put that oxygen mask on your child, you need to put it on yourself, because if you go out, there's no one to take care of the child. You have to take care of yourself to take care of others. And we're trapped in a 24-hour cycle of politics now. There's no escaping it. And it's amazing to me because I'm old enough to remember when I was young and growing up, people knew who the president of the United States was. And, occasionally things would come up and the president would be on TV. But otherwise, the president really wasn't something we were talking about every single day. They used to say back in the day, back in the 70s and 80s, that the last year of the presidency was kind of a mixed bag of accomplishments because he was already starting his campaign for the next election. Well, now, right after the election, the day after the election, before the new president is even inaugurated, we are talking about 4 years from now. Who's going to run? What are they going to do? It's amazing to me that cycle never ends now. And if you want to make a difference in this world, if you spend time in your neighborhoods, if you spend time helping nonprofit organizations or what have you, you want to go out on Sunday afternoon and enjoy a football game and not have politics, or go to a concert and not be preached to, or watch an award show and not have every other person coming up there and giving a political speech, which you got to keep in mind never ends now. It's all day long, from morning until night. And even if you wake up in the middle of the night and you turn on your TV, it's there. It never goes away. And I just feel that politicians now are constantly the subject of whatever is going on, no matter what it is. And as a sports figure, as an entertainer, you have to realize that a lot of what you are doing is providing escapism. You are providing an outlet to forget about the problems of the day. That is your function. People can take their frustrations out on the fact that their team is losing, and they don't have to take out their frustrations during the week in their normal life. And if they go to a concert, they get to enjoy one of their heroes perform, and they're not getting preached to. And I really feel that the entertainment industry has to take a step back. From what I understand, the next Olympics is going to limit how much political stuff can go on, because here again, that's not what the Olympics are for. If anything, the idea of the Olympics was to provide unity, to provide a chance for everyone to come together and enjoy the very best that the world has to offer. Now, I spent a lot of time on politics, and there's no question that politics is one of the reasons why things are happening the way they are for the Academy Awards and other award shows, but there's other reasons. The film industry has encountered a number of challenges over the years, over the last 100 years, as a matter of fact. In the 1950s, the emergence of TV, there was Lucille Ball and all these other things. And the film industry got a little nervous. What if people stay home? So they came out with extra wide screens and the different types of sound and all these other things. And the film industry very wisely embraced TV. They used TV as a vehicle to promote their films. And then as time went on, there was cable TV. And then there was playable media, DVDs, VCRs, and all these other things during the 70s and 80s, 90s. Laserdisc. And then, of course, with the emergence of high-speed internet, you had all these streaming services. And here again, the film industry very wisely embraced these things, found a way to capitalize on them rather than fight against them. And movie ticket sales just every year, you had these banner big years, especially for these comic book superhero type movies. Now things are a little different. This is the first time that I am aware of, as a fan of media, that the film industry is facing one of its biggest challenges ever, and that's been COVID-19. Okay. There's a lot of factors that go into this. I'm not sure. They say we're coming to the end of the tunnel. There's light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to COVID-19, and I hope so. I really hope so. But there is first going to be the fear factor that a lot of these studios are going to have to overcome. I personally have always felt a little uncomfortable in a theater as it is. I always have the worst luck. I'm always behind somebody who's coughing and hacking as it is. And on all this. Now, that is very frightening. Okay. That's somebody that might potentially have a very serious infection of some kind, viral or what have you. So you're in a dark room with what could be hundreds of people that you do not know for 2 hours. That's a tough one to overcome right now, even with the vaccines working well and all these other things. That's a tough one to overcome. And just like with working habits, working from home, there's a lot of businesses that have realized not all of their employees need to be in a building. And our shopping has changed. The way we shop, that has changed, probably forever. And the film industry has to face the fact that not only do they have to overcome the fear of people getting back into the theaters, but they have to overcome the fact that their habits are now changing. The way they take in a movie is changing. Are they more inclined to just stay home and stream a movie or what have you? The way that entertainment is being utilized, is being taken advantage of, being used, is changing. And that's something that, here again, COVID-19 may very well have changed the landscape forever. We just don't know by how much. The other thing is that there has been a certain arrogance in the film industry. And I feel that that's coming back to haunt them now, because people who really enjoy films, and I alluded to this at the beginning, people who really value the art of storytelling, the movies as an art form, okay, that has given away to a lot of superhero and CGI effects. And for whatever reason, I'm not a student of what's happening with the film marketplace right now, but independent films are making a big, big impact. Okay, from where I'm at, Cleveland is one of the best kept secrets in the film industry. There's a lot of very talented people in the independent film market. And for people who really enjoy the art of movie making, there's a new fertile marketplace there. Okay, and this idea that the only place to get a good movie was from the big studio system, that's not true anymore. And small creators, you know, that's a thing where the music industry now, the gap between using moderately priced equipment and professional movie making equipment, or let's say music making equipment, that gap was enormous. Back in the 1960s and 70s, a Super 8 movie camera couldn't do anything compared to what a professional camera would do. And unless you were in the business, there's no way that you could afford that. But that's not the case anymore. You know, you have in your pocket, in your phone, essentially a small production company. You don't need a dedicated camera. You don't need a dedicated computer. You could conceivably make a short film with your phone alone, without anything else involved. And filmmakers now, with this even professional equipment becoming much more affordable and much more attainable in terms of cost, these things don't have to cost mountains of money anymore. You can get some pretty decent equipment and make a pretty fantastic story, especially when you're relying on your skills as a filmmaker, when you're relying on people who are doing acting for their love of acting and they're creating something special in terms of their content. There's enough technical means now to capture that very well. Okay? And there's a lot of people now who are finding a voice as a small, independent guy who's working in his basement. He has the same access that a lot of musicians do now with this new technology that musicians and creators did not have, let's say 20, 25 years ago, as recently as that. So there's a lot of ways for talented people, and there's a lot of talented people out there who have access to a larger system now, a larger way of communicating. There's these different groups, these independent film groups, small creator groups. I'm involved in some for audio and podcasting and voiceovers and all these things. These tools, when I first started out in the 1980s, were not there. And they are there now. So here's again, there's another aspect to all of this that the film industry is facing that simply did not exist when TV first came out in the 1950s. There's no way an independent home guy that loved movies was going to create something that somebody could watch like a movie on his own. But that's not true anymore. And here's the final thing that I believe that the studios have to contend with. And that is, what makes a star? What makes a star a star? We talked about Marlon Brando. During his era, there was Robert Redford. There was Newman. There was all these people who were Sidney Poitier. There were these people who were just magnificent actors, magnificent artisans. And I'm not so sure now that, even then, back then, there was always somebody who came along and got famous doing something silly, a pop star or whatever. But now, what makes a star is a little different. If you ask them, getting back to what I was talking about, those 18-year-olds, if we go to an 18-year-old and we talk about Brad Pitt, or we talk about Denzel Washington, does that grab their attention as much as Charlie D'Amelio or Logan Paul? There's a different landscape out there now in terms of what constitutes a star. It used to be that somebody who was just famous for being famous was rare. They were a cute thing that was hot for a year or so, and then they were gone. But now it's becoming the norm that people become famous for being famous. They're born to a famous attorney that handled a famous case, or they're born something, a fate or something put them in a position where they are famous for being famous. And social media, the internet has, here again, we've had those kind of people before make their way through the cracks. But now we have a new star system that we didn't have before. The rules are rapidly changing on who the public is going to gravitate to. So here again, getting back to politics, if I'm in the position of running the Academy Awards, when more people know who Logan Paul is than Denzel Washington, I don't want the stars on the stage preaching. I want them being entertaining. I want them doing the same thing that Logan Paul and all these people are doing on the internet. These different aspects of what's entertaining, of what makes a star is going to have to be more carefully considered by the people who run show business as a business, because it's not always about art. It's not always about all those things that are quote unquote really good, but it's a matter of capturing people's attention. And I don't know that you can capture people's attention with a 3-hour long, boring award show filled with politics. That is the simple truth. There's just way too much going on right now. So anyway, I'm Billy Dees. That is my commentary for this week. I would love to hear from you. Real easy to tweet me. Twitter is kind of like my social media home. You can find me very easily on Twitter at Billy Dees. And Billy Dees is my screen name for just about all of the social media that I'm on. So anytime you're on social media and you want to find out if I'm there, just search Billy Dees. I'm either there or I'm not. It's that simple. Thank you very much for listening to our podcast today. And we'll be back again next week. Thank you very much. Well, hello everyone. I am Billy Dees from the self-titled Billy Dees Podcast. You can find me on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and many more of the best podcast networks. Join me for my commentary and interviews. Follow me on Twitter, real easy to find, at Billy Dees. I am Billy Dees. I'd love to have you listen in.